What's the most fucked up thing you saw at a sleepover? When I was 12, we went on a family trip to Vegas. I woke up in the hotel to my parents having frick in the bed next to me. I was trapped and had nowhere to go. My mom said something along the lines of stop, we're gonna wake up the kids. My dad gets up, walks over to our bed and rips the blankets off our faces and said, see, fast asleep, I should have won an AskReddit. I had no idea this would blow up. Thank you for all the love, strangers. I have no idea how this works. How? So this obviously messed with me going forward. Any trips after this, I just waited my parents out. They would say small things like going to bed anytime soon. And I'm just flat out like nope. They would fall asleep and I won. In hindsight, as an adult with kids, I do feel bad for cockblocking every future family trip. Slaps you, this bad boy can sleep 4 miles. It would have only been better if you had your eyes wide open, blank stare. Why was that his go-to move? What would he have done if he ripped off the sheets and just saw O_O? The dad's mistress came over. Apparently the mother knew of her existence and it had been putting a strain on things. My buddy and I hid in the basement while the wife and mistress were screaming at each other upstairs. Shockingly did not cause a divorce. I was staying at my buddy's house when his dad showed up. His parents were separated, but divorce hadn't happened yet. Apparently mom had a new boyfriend over and somehow dad got wind. I still remember hearing him pounding on the front door and screaming while his mom and the boyfriend yelled back. Eventually the cops came and took his dad away for disturbing the peace or something like that. Same thing. We were huddled in the basement listening to all of it, and then his mom came down and acted like nothing had happened. Asked if we wanted a snack or something. I just wanted to go home. When I was in elementary school, I got invited with my sister to a birthday party of one of her friends. Everything was going fine for most of the night. And then the catastrophe happened. Her mom came down to the basement and was clearly very upset, but didn't explain why. She then had each of us line up on the stairs from the basement to the ground level of the house and brought us in one by one. I wasn't the first in line, but no one was telling us what happened once it was their turn. Finally I was up, and her mom took me into the bathroom and showed me a trash can with a poop in it. She was basically on the verge of tears, pointing to the trash can and asking me, is this your poop? Is this your poop? It wasn't. We never found out whose it was. Or at least I wasn't told. We have joked that someone will finally come forward on their deathbed, but my sister and I have since lost contact with those girls. So we may never know. This is the last time I'm asking. God damn it. Slams fists on table. Is this your poop? I was 13 to 14 and staying the night at a friend's house with 2 other girls when we were woken up by a loud popping noise from her brother's room. Naturally 4 curious girls went to see what the hell he was doing at 3 in the morning. Her mom came running up the stairs about the time we entered his room and quickly herded us back out of his room in hysterics. It took my brain forever to register that he had shot himself in the chest. Luckily he survived. And I never had another sleepover at someone else's house again. Plenty of nightmares though, if you don't mind me asking. Was it an accident or suicide attempt? A gun going off indoors is a sound you never forget. Found my friend's older brother's an in-body pillow. He had clearly did the dirty with it. His body pillow stands up on its own. Saw my friend's parents having relations. Parents had no idea me, and my friend saw them. Yeah, same here. Saw they're out of shape. Drunk off their asses as usual, parents slow mucking in a rhythm that still doesn't make sense 40 years and a variety of partners later. First time seeing adult genitals in person and 6. I can't believe how vivid that unfortunate memory is when I've forgotten so much more important stuff since. More context since this blew up. Yes, it's irresponsible for the parents to be drunk while in charge of other kids. We were about 13 and didn't want or need intense supervision, but still. They were hardcore alcoholics and that wasn't even the worst. Once they invited me camping at a lake, which proved to be a fun, memorable weekend. However, on the way to the freeway they stopped at a bar at like 8:30 on a Saturday morning and left us out there in the parking lot for over a mucking hour, then drove 2 hours to the lake. That was the last camping trip I went on, though I'm still in occasional contact with that friend today. In the long run it was a valuable education about hardcore alcoholism for me. So net plus really. As for witnessing the relations, we were sleeping in a huge box fort we'd built in the backyard. And my friend's younger brother came giggling saying, the trolls running nickname they had for their mean drunk parents are humping. So we tiptoed over and peered into the bathroom window in ranks from shortest to tallest. To spy them on the bed, spread eagled directly toward our viewpoint. There, 10 feet away from our pubescent eyes, was sex. Oh, however, it was nothing like what our imaginative virgin minds expected. Even by the tubercanalian pubic hair standards we'd seen in those purloined 70s copies of Penthouse, OUI, and Club. The sight of these particular parental loins doing the horizontal mambo was difficult to process with no experience of our own. Physically, it was like Arbis and Wiener Schnitzel were in a deathmatch cognac wrestling in a poopty strip mall McDojo, and had busted through the wall and were now scrabbling around the hair on the floor of the adjoining barber shop. Now the rhythm, that didn't make sense. I understand those who say there's no wrong way to have frick, and I agree in principle. See if you think it sounds common or expected. He was on top of her, both face down, and lying almost flat. Head thrust quickly in out, then freeze for a count of longer than 5. Then another thrust and long pause. It might make sense in the context of edging or delaying climax, but it was like that the whole time. We watched for less than a minute a couple of times over the course of a half hour before my friend forbade us to go out there again. It was enough sample to know they were just saucily maintaining that rhythm the whole time through, course that's how they rolled at that hour, having polished off a bottle of vodka each since getting home from work. From an adult perspective, it would just make the average guy go soft, and if it was porn, it would make the entire audience go soft. Hold the phone. Little Timmy's parents were getting kinky while their child's friends were there. Bouncy. When I was like 9 or 10 I spent the night at a friend's house. I knew his mom was pretty strict, but holy crap did I find out how much. He did something really minor like leave his socks in the living room and she started shouting at him like he left a turd on the floor or something. Then he pissed her off again that night and she wailed on his ass so hard that it scared me. She was a psycho the way she was spanking and shouting at him. I hated her guts after that night. Edit. I have no idea how this guy turned out. We moved away soon after, and googling his common name is like looking for a John Smith. Also another guy with the same name was murdered in the same town. It wasn't him, so it's buried pretty deep. Had a friend like that. Went to his house and accidentally went in the good living room and he freaked out. I thought it was super weird, but he got the vacuum out in order to remove my footprints from the living room carpet. It was in the thick pile. Not dirt or anything, but it meant you could see where I walked. For a second I thought it was funny, but he was so scared of his mom that it really freaked me out. They also had to shower sitting in their bathtub, so that they wouldn't splash water everywhere. Super sad that people that crazy even have kids in the first place. My mom screaming at us for covering the kitchen floor with water and dish soap at 2 AM. So we could go skating. At the time I really couldn't understand what she was so upset about, but, Mom, we're helping clean. Shaving cream works better. My poor parents. Had her I did that too. Friend and I discovered that if we left push the water button on the fridge, we had infinite water, so we stuck the button with a glass or something and put some on the floor. We had a lot of fun. Both my parents went crazy when they saw the mess. When I was in the 6th grade I was going to stay the night at a friend's house, but we ended up at another kid's down the street. This guy ended up talking about how he would hump his bed until there was a wet spot on his boxers. He ended up doing this while we were in the room watching TV and then showed us the wet spot. And that was how I learned how to jerk off. Same. I was so confused when I saw the wet spot in my bed after doing this. I actually ran to my parents asking them why my pee was sticky. Haha. For me, it was in a bathroom in 4th grade. Him just peeing. And I hear a scream from a stall. There's bubbles coming out my wang. Kid who had a pee jar in his closet. It was a gallon pickle jar. If he had to pee in the middle of the night he had to use the jar. Once his mom put him in his room for the night, we weren't allowed to leave his room until she came to get us the next morning. How did they make sure of that? The doorknob was turned around backwards so they could lock us in. Holy poop, my inbox. Okay. The jar was for emergency use only and was emptied and washed in the morning. If he used it, probably rarely used it, since most kids that age can hold it all night. He was a bad kid and stayed in trouble. Pretty sure the lock thing was to send him to his room and make sure he stayed there. Don't know about the parents' sexual habits, but I'm not surprised that most of Reddit immediately jumped on the drug-fueled Dodge's responses. What if there was a fire? UHH sounds a bit like child abuse. Hope you and your friend are okay. I had a friend whose dad had a fish tank of piranha. I really wanted to feed them a hot dog, but her dad told me they already ate. During the night I snuck down to where the fish tank was, and there was picked clean fish bones in the tank. The dad was down there watching football, and he spotted me and asked if I still wanted to feed the piranha. Being a small piranha obsessed child, I nodded and produced the hot dog I saved from the barbecue dinner we had. It was the most terrifying and awesome thing I have ever saw. 10/10ths would never want to watch 3 piranha go at a hot dog ever again. Least not in person. This one is actually pretty cool and wholesome. Or that's kinda cute. I'm so sorry you'll have to suffer the mental image of this. But it was a classic high school sleepover. We ate tons of junk food and drank a good amount of smuggled beers. After which friend 1 suggests we sneak into the community pool to go skinny dipping. We were all pretty reckless, so it came as a surprise when friend 2 vehemently opposed the idea. He absolutely would not budge for the longest time. Of course, we eventually bullied him into compliance as HS kids do. Climbed the fence, dropped our drawers, and went for a dip. Unfortunately for us, it must have been a full moon that night, because despite the lateness of the evening there was still enough light for us all to see. To our horror, the aptly named friend 2 began releasing stream after stream of projectile diarrhea just moments after we all got in the pool. And yes, it looked exactly like what you are undoubtedly picturing in your mind right now. We also completely neglected to bring towels. So we ended the night with a long, wet, cold, and completely silent walk back to friend 1's house. The next morning, friend 2 pretended to have blacked out from his 2 beers and claimed he had no memory of the event. We are still friends to this day, and hilariously enough he is now my gastroenterologist. Please give me a sugar-coated definition of the last word. Looking it up is too much of a risk. Edit. Thanks guys. Appreciate it. Edit 2. Please don't make this comment my highest karma gain. When I was 9, and in Girl Scouts we had a trap sleepover party that was relatively unsupervised, and at some point girls just started reaching down each other's pants and ripping their underwear out. Other girls were shoving worn socks in each other's mouths and pulling hair. I just remember sitting in a corner and guarding myself with a ping pong paddle. Edit. Wow, this story blew up. Crazy times were had in Girl Scouts. That's for sure. Thanks for everyone who's been responding. Thanks for the awards. Also thanks for sharing your own stories. I've been laughing my ass off all night about this. Girl Scouts descend into chaos so quickly. I remember hiding up a tree when things got a bit too Lord of the Flies. My asthmatic ass was not gonna able to hold my own in a preteen girl fight. Edit. Lol yes. The asthma. Thanks for the silver. I will own being the piggy of whatever group I was in. Fortunately I was fast enough to get up a tree until an adult showed up. Kids are freaking weird. Not me but a friend. When we were 14, she went to a girl's house for a sleepover. Girl's dad let them hang out in the garage and drink beer. Later my friend was sitting outside alone, and the dad came out and started talking to her. Then he tried to kiss her, and as she backs away, the mom walked out and caught him. She started screaming at both of them and told my friend she needed to leave. She was 14 and drunk in the girl house. It was told her mom that was bull deuce and she was staying. My friend said she couldn't sleep all night. The next morning the mom took my friend alone into the bedroom and apologized and said they were having marital problems and he had cheated on her before. Hopefully it wasn't with any other kids. Edit. Thanks for the awards. The place we grew up was a nightmare. I've got 1,000 more like this. I wish I could tell my friend how this blew up, but I never want to bring it up to her again. The legal age of consent was 14 at the time, Canada in the mid 2000s, and she probably thought it was her fault. After she got yelled at, and please, if you see someone abusing a child, or something doesn't seem right, Say something. What the muck? The cops needed to be mucking called. Getting a 14-year-old drunk to take advantage of her is disgusting as frick. When I was about 15, there was a couple in my cousin's congregation that offered to host a sleepover for some of the teen girls. I was staying with my cousin at the time, so I went with her to their house for the sleepover. When I got there, I realized that this couple only had one kid, and it was a little boy, maybe 6 or 7 years old. The couple set us 5 teenage girls up in the basement. It was furnished and carpeted, not a creepy basement, and the wife set out a bunch of snacks, and then we didn't see her or the little boy the rest of the night. But the 30-something dad spent most of the evening with us, offering us sips of his Kahlua drink and leaving the liquor cabinet doors open when he would announce that he was going to another room. I was creeped out, but I was so sheltered at the time that I didn't understand why exactly until years later. This was so uncomfortable to read. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Did you tell your parents about it? Not a sleepover in the traditional sense, as we were both in our early 20s. But I once had a friend visiting from interstate, and I let him crash at my parents to save him on accommodation costs. Trying to be a good host, I let him sleep in my bed, and I slept on the floor. Woke up to the sound of this poop head wanking in my bed. Who freaking does that? Still pisses me off to this day. Never understood how people can't keep it in their pants. LMAO WTF. Woke up to my friend watching porn on the PS3. That happened to me once a good 9 to 10 years ago. Too bad I was the one watching. It's nothing that I saw, but more like something that happened to me. I was 13 when I stayed over at my friend's house for the night. We were up pretty late playing video games and eating snacks. I got thirsty, so me and my friend went to the fridge to get a bottle of Coke. When I opened the bottle, the soda shot straight up my face and got all over my white shirt. I asked my friend if I could shower, since I was pretty sticky from the soda. Once I got out the shower, I noticed my friend and his little brother were knocked out in the living room sofas. BTW, I had no shirt on since the soda ruined mine completely. That's when their aunt came through the front door and saw me. She got close to me and started to rub her hands around my chest and shoulders. I was completely shocked and stayed still. Then my friend's brother woke up and saw what was going on. She stopped touching me right away and said, "Oh, I thought you were my nephew." Then went straight to her room and never came out until I left the next morning. Even if I were her nephew, why the hell would she touch me like that? To this day I wonder what would have happened if my friend's little brother hadn't woken up. Edit. The aunt moved away and my friend seems well adjusted and has a family of their own. I'm okay as well. That was the first and last sleepover at that place ever again. EWWWTF. I'm sorry that happened to you. Whoa, that's creepy. I hope you're doing okay these days.